So at least 6 Philadelphia police officers were shot in a huge story that broke yesterday. Now, thankfully, they're just wounded, and I don't think any of them died. So Kamala Harris went on CNN like in the aftermath as soon as this was happening, or I think as soon as it was over. Or actually, you know what? They hadn't caught, there were 2 shooters. They had gotten one. They hadn't gotten the other one yet, but the 6 officers had already been shot and they were in the hospital, but not life-threatening, and they're going to be fine. But Kamala Harris, in the midst of all this, was on CNN. She gave her take as to how we can, fix problems like this. Let's watch, and then there's a really important fact here, which kind of, which is left out, which really changes the dynamic of what the solution would be. Let's watch, and then I'll explain.
Committees is joining us here in the Situation Room. Very disturbing development indeed. You're former Attorney General of California. What's your reaction to these initial reports? And I stress the word initial reports.
Well, it's just, when will it stop, right? I mean, part of my focus on what we need to do around smart gun safety laws is recognize that we have to have more enforcement around gun dealers. 90% of the guns that are associated with crime are sold by just 5% of the gun dealers in the United States. And so among the many plans that I have, both in the form of executive action and also in the form of legislation, one of them is to put more resources into the ATF to take the licenses of gun dealers who violate the law. And that includes a number of things, including when they're responsible for doing background checks, not doing them. So,
but does your plan go, from your perspective, far enough?
Well, there are a variety of things. First of all, let's be clear. I have hugged too many mothers of homicide victims over the years. I have looked at more autopsy photographs than I care to tell you of people whose lives have been ended because of gun violence. We need Congress to act. We do not lack for good ideas. We do not lack for tragedies. The failure of Congress, however, the United States Congress, to act on passing smart gun safety laws is the issue. So when elected, I'll give the United States Congress 100 days to pull their act together on this and put a bill on my desk for signature. And if they do not, I am prepared to take executive action to, 1, put in place a comprehensive background check requirement, 2, put the resources into the ATF to take the licenses from gun dealers who violate the law, and 3, to ban the importation of assault weapons.
Okay, so listen, all that stuff is fine and dandy. I don't necessarily disagree with her on those policies. I'm not sure her entire gun reform package. I'd have to look through it. Maybe I have minor disagreements, but I largely agree with her on that stuff. But here's the thing. This shooting, we know, and we knew at the time when she was doing this segment as well, which is an important fact. It was a drug bust gone wrong. So even though I don't disagree with the policy she's laying out there, this is a square peg, round hole situation. Because the real solution is, hey, decriminalize drugs, legalize marijuana, and that would make it so you wouldn't have a drug bust gone wrong, because there wouldn't be a drug bust, because it would be out of the black market. So no longer would there be gangsters and the mafia dealing with this stuff. It would be above ground, be in the sunlight. It wouldn't be dangerous anymore. And of course, Kamala Harris is not for decriminalizing drugs. So that's not, like, you're not really addressing the core of this particular instance. Now, again, I don't necessarily disagree with her on the gun reform proposals there, but like, it's time to start putting pressure on these politicians to evolve on this issue, because that actually is the solution. We've had a drug war going for decades now, and we have literally hundreds of thousands of people dead because it is an actual war, a hot war. We also have had a massive increase in organized crime and violent crime, because when you ban these substances, you push them underground, gangsters and the mafia deals with them, and the cartels get incredibly powerful, and you give them a monopoly. So they're the only game in town when it comes to substances. And so when there's a dispute, they settle it in the street with guns. Whereas if it's legal, taxed, and regulated, and there's a dispute, you settle it in court. See, we learned the lesson of prohibition. We know how this works. We know that when alcohol was illegal, there was a giant increase in crime because the alcohol was illegal. So you have gangs running the show, running the businesses. When we legalized alcohol and ended prohibition, all of a sudden the crime went down because now it's legitimate businesses dealing with the alcohol and it's not gangsters. Same thing here. Police officers get shot doing a drug raid. Well, there's an easy solution here. Make drug raids no longer a thing. And then nobody's going to get shot in this instance. So it's just... And I'm telling you, this is the answer. 100%. And honestly, we still need to move. Like Joe Rogan asked Bernie a great question in the podcast. And he said, hey, would you go further and decriminalize more drugs? And Bernie said no. Bernie is dead wrong. To be fair to Bernie, he wants to legalize marijuana for recreational use. He's right on that. But at the very least, you need to also say we need to decriminalize all drugs because it should be looked at as more of a health issue than a criminal issue. As long as you have it criminalized, there's going to be more violence associated with all those different drugs. I don't care how terrible the drug is. If it's treated more like a health issue, you don't have problems like we saw here, where a drug bust goes wrong, you have an increase in crime on the black market, you have now cops getting shot at because they're trying to police substances like this. It's just the exact wrong way to go about it. So, Kamala Harris, while I don't disagree with her policy she laid out on gun reform, we need to push these politicians to be better on the issue of decriminalizing drugs because that's the only way to really tick down this violence. And in this instance, to stop these 6 police officers from getting shot in the first place.